Hello everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, the GeneaVlogger, and welcome to a new genealogy tutorial. On today's genealogy tutorial, we will be discussing how to navigate the HTML version of the World Family Tree on Genie.com. Some of you may have seen my previous genealogy tutorial on how to navigate the Flash version of the World Family Tree on Genie.com. And if you have, you will notice that there are a lot of similarities between both, but there are enough differences that switching from one to the other may cause some difficulties for some users to get down. So to start, we're just going to discuss how to get into the HTML version of the family tree, which right here we have an example of the HTML version with George Washington's family tree. And we will actually be using George Washington's family tree for an example throughout the rest of this video. To get into the HTML tree, all you have to do is go to this tree option at the top of the page and click that down arrow. And that's going to give you this option. It'll say switch to Flash tree if you're in the HTML tree, such as I am now, or continue using HTML tree. Or if you're in the Flash tree, it'll be the opposite. So we're just going to switch to the Flash tree real quick. So here we have it loading. And there we have the George Washington family tree in Flash. And then to just go back, we're going to click that down arrow. And now we see switch to HTML tree is right there. We click that and it's going to switch us back from the Flash into the HTML version of the family tree. Now, one thing I want to define really quickly is just the term node. And a node is each box that represents a person. So this node for Captain Augustine Washington is blue. The node for Mary Washington Ball is pinkish sort of color, and then you'll notice the focal person is gray, and sometimes you may notice a green colored profile, and the green colored profiles usually means that there's no gender specified. But a node is very important, and whenever you hear that term, just know that we're talking about basically that person's place in the tree. Now within that node, there are some things to note. So we're just going to zoom in real quick here. And you will notice within the node, the typical stuff, we have the name, we have the editing pencil. So if we click that, that's going to bring up our editing fields. Although you're going to notice that a lot of these editing fields are going to be locked. And you can see that because they're all grayed out. The also known as is not locked. And then there's a few others that aren't. But for the majority, most of this profile is locked. And you'll actually notice this purple lock right underneath the profile. And that indicates that that is a locked profile. Now, when it comes to locking profiles in Genie, the only kind of profiles that can be locked are master profiles. And master profiles, you will always notice, have this purple sort of border around the photo. You can see that with George Washington's parents. You can kind of see it with his wife, Martha Washington. You can see it with his half-sister, Jane. You can see it really well here with his half-nephew, George Washington. So you'll often see that purple outline, but sometimes you'll notice it's just a green outline, and that's just a regular profile. Or if it's a living person where it's a claimed profile, so that person is actually within the family tree, then they'll be outlined in blue. Now, a few other things to note about the node that's very similar to the Flash tree. You have the magnifying glass up here with the number of hints that are from Genie as well as MyHeritage. You also get this little tree symbol right here, which just means that you would be setting that person as the focal point in the family tree. And then you have the other representation of that over here from Martha Washington, where it's an actual picture of a little tree. And then you have the number of profiles which you would be viewing that you cannot view in the current tree that you're viewing now. And you'll see that little pop-up. It says view Martha Washington Dandridge, First Lady of the USA's branch of the tree. And that's just going to set her as the focal point of the tree. Now, when you're navigating the family tree, it's fairly straightforward. You have this zoom bar right here, so you can just zoom in and zoom out however you want. You also have these arrows down here, so if you want to go to the left, you just click it, and it takes you a little over the left. You click it if you want to go to the right, click it if you want to go up or down, and then you also have the same thing over here on the side, the top, the other side, and the bottom, so you can just kind of click those and take you around so you don't have to do the whole drag and drops, because I know some people get annoyed by that. But as you can see here, we're like, oh, well, where are we in the tree? I'm a little lost. Well, if you want to go back to your focal person, all you do is click this little bullseye, and that's going to take you right back to the focal person. So for us, that's George Washington. Now, if you'd like to adjust the number of generations that you're viewing in the family tree in terms of your ancestors or your descendants, all you have to do is go over to this little settings wheel that's right above your zoom slider. You just click that and you get this pop-up of ancestors and descendants, and it goes from 1 all the way up to 19 and then 20. Those who use the flash tree may have noticed that it'll actually go up to 19 and then go to all instead of 20. Usually if you're going anything above 20, you're probably going to be timing out anyway, just because those trees can become massive. But if you were also looking for the setting of ancestors only, they do not have that in the HTML tree yet. The closest thing that you can get to that is the pedigree view down here to the right, which we will be talking about later in this video. But a little hidden trick that a lot of people don't notice with Genie is these two bottom tabs, Navigate and Go To. When you click on Navigate, that's going to give you a big overview of the family tree. And so you can just kind of click on it and it's going to give you that view. So looking here, it's a great example. We have this green node, Infant Washington. There's no gender indicated, most likely because it wasn't indicated on the documentation that this child was born. And so that profile is green, but you see that the siblings are pink, blue, blue, or pink, blue, and pink, excuse me. All you have to do to just go through the Navigate is just click like that. And then you have these little arrows on the side so that you can scroll through. But as well as Navigate, you also have Go To. And Go To is just like the Go To in Flash, where it's going to give you a list of everybody who is in the current family tree view that you have, and it's going to list them by name. The list is always going to be in alphabetical order, and it'll usually start with your symbols and numbers and then go A through Z. And as you'll notice, there's this little green bar here that is showing how fast it is loading. So from here, it's going to take a little bit of while because it's a huge family tree, and when you have these large trees, it just takes a while. So I'm just going to fast forward from here so we can jump right to it. All right, now that we have it loaded, we can see this list starting out with symbols, then it's going A through Z, and we can just click on whatever letter, and it's going to take us to that list of people. And it's going to list it by both last name, so surname, and a maiden name, or the birth name. So as an example, we have Martha Washington, who was born Martha Dandridge. So if we go into D, we're going to look for Dandridge, and there we go, Martha, First Lady of the USA Dandridge. You click that, it'll take her it'll take you right to her place in the tree. So looking right below her, we have Mary Willis Dangerfield. We click that and takes us right to her in the tree. But going back to Martha, we know that her last name, her married last name, is Washington. So we're going to go into W. And there are a lot of Washingtons, so we know we're going to need to go for a while. So there we are in the Washingtons. JHL. We should be getting there. There we go. Martha. And there we go. Washington, Martha Dandridge, First Lady of the USA. And that is her. Now, we do notice that there are other Martha Washingtons, and there are a few Martha Dandridge Washingtons. And we click down there and we can see all the different ones. And so you can see that they're all different people. So you can check if you're not sure if it's the right person, just click on it and it'll take you there. So when you're looking for people, this is really nice because let's say that you kind of forgot what Martha Washington's maiden name was. Then if you're, in a different part of the family tree and you're trying to find her and you think she's already in that tree, you can then pull up her name using her married name. Or if you just know her by the maiden name, then you can pull it up through that. Now, a big part of the HTML tree is one of the things that they call the left side panel. And that is just a little panel that pops up on the left with all sorts of pieces of information as well as different actions that you can take in the tree. And to get to that, all you have to do is literally click on either the profile picture or click on another part of the node that is not the name, because that's going to take you to their actual profile, or the little editing button or the tree. So if we click on the picture George Washington, we have the left side panel open up for him. And this left side panel is going to give us a lot of different options and a lot of different information. So in the top, we have his picture, then we have his name. And if you want to go into his profile, you click that and it's going to open it up into a new window as it is doing here. So that's loading George Washington's profile. So just exit out of that. But then also it's going to give you if you have a known relation to this person. So I know that I'm a 13th cousin 6 times removed to George Washington. So it's showing me there 13th cousin 6 times removed. If I wanted to see the full relationship, exactly how we're related, I would click on the profile and go look at that in his profile. But if he's not the focal point of the tree we're looking at, we can click this button and that will make him the focal point. You can also click edit, and that's just going to bring up that typical edit view. But as we discussed earlier, because George Washington's profile is a locked profile, you're not going to be able to edit much of anything. If we wanted to add any relationships as well, we would click add, and that would pop up a whole bunch of options. Now, when there is a locked profile, you will likely not be able to add anybody. But if you do need to add anybody and it's not a locked profile, you can click this and it'll give you all the options. The other option you can do is you can click the little plus profile in the actual HTML tree and it'll pop up like that. So it'll give you son, daughter, wife, husband, mother, father, brother, sister, etc. So you have a few different places that you can do a lot of things, but the left side panel really has most everything. Then you also have your more. So if you want to view the profile, it's the same as clicking on the name. It's going to open up in a new tab. If you want to remove the photo, I highly recommend not using this unless it's a photo that you actually uploaded or if this is something that's already been discussed. Removing things from Genie isn't always the best thing to do, and it's often best to discuss things before you remove it, especially if it's not something that you put up. There's also this move profile option, and when you do that, you click that, and up here in the top right, you'll see this little pop-up, and it has a node that you can basically move around. And what that does is you just drag it in. So if, for whatever reason, we're going to say that George Washington is, the brother of this George Washington, which obviously is not true, but we drag it and drop it, and then it has this pop-up. George is to George. He's his father, husband, brother, son, or this person is the same. So, if you're trying to merge two profiles or if you're trying to merge trees, this can be an easy way to do it. We're going to hit cancel here. But one nice thing is that when this pops up, this map, and you have these different nodes listed here, you can move to a different view of the tree. So let's say that, George Washington married somebody else who was in Martha's tree. Well, we click that little tree symbol and it's going to take us into Martha's tree. But when it populates Martha's tree, we're still going to have that box up in the top right with the node for George Washington, so we can drag and drop him into the right place in the tree. So once you put that node up in that top right, no matter which trees you go to, that node is going to be there and you'll be able to drag and drop it wherever. So, if he'd married this woman, we could drag it there and then we would say George is Anne's husband, and then it would merge that together. But we do not want to do that because that's going to cause a lot of problems in the tree here. And if you accidentally put someone in the move to column and you didn't mean to do that, you just click the little X button and then you'll get this pop up down here. Are you sure this profile will be removed from your list? Yes, proceed. And then that should depopulate. And there we go. So now going back to the node and looking at more. There's this curator options, which I'm a curator. Most people are not. So even if that populates for most people, which I don't think it does, it's not going to do anything for you. add to projects. This is great because if you've created a project or there's a project that you're a part of and you want to add people to it, you can be in the tree view and do that. And that's not something that you can really do in the Flash tree. You'd have to actually go to the person's profile or go to that project. So this makes that really easy. And if you don't know about projects, I have a whole video all about them. So I highly recommend going and watching that to learn more. And then last, in the more section, we have resolve duplicates. And so this is if, for whatever reason, there's a few different George Washingtons, you can click that, and that's going to give you the option of merging different people. So sometimes duplicates might be children. Sometimes people will accidentally add somebody twice. Maybe they show up with different names and different census records. So someone thinks that there's a whole nother person in the family and they aren't. Then you can merge those proper profiles together by doing that. Then the rest of this left side panel gives us a lot of the information about the person. We have their birth date, we have their birth location, their death date, death location. It also gives us the cause of death if that's listed. We'll also be given the occupations, and you get the beginning part of the about section from the profile. You also get the profile history, when was the last time it was updated, who was this profile added by, who manages the profile, and if there is a curator, if it's a master profile. Now, if it's a master profile and it's a locked master profile and there's something you want to edit, you usually will want to contact the curator directly. Sometimes you can message the managers to discuss things, or you can just start a discussion. But usually contacting a curator on a locked profile is one of your best options. Then below that, you're going to get your immediate family listing. So it'll have your parents, siblings, partners, and then below that, it would show children if there were any. And one nice thing is that, let's say we want to look at Colonel Samuel Washington, we click that, and Samuel is hidden in the view. Click the tree button to view his tree. Well, that's a good point. Right now we're in Martha Washington's tree and we can't view Samuel. So we're going to X that out, and then we're going to either hit the tree view here, or we can hit this little button here, and that's going to reset George Washington as the focal point. So when you're looking at things and you're not in the right tree to be looking at what you want to look at, it might pop up that warning for you. Okay, so now that this tree is loaded back up, we're going to pull up that left side panel. Let's scroll down, and we're going to choose Colonel Charles Washington. And so that takes us over to Colonel Charles Washington's family tree. And I should note that when you do this, it's still setting the original person as the focal point. So it's not changing the focal point of the tree. It's just taking you to that person within the tree. So this is really helpful if you're looking at a large family tree for a historical family, such as the Washington family, and trying to go through navigate, or just by using the different arrows may be difficult, and it might be easier just to click on that name. But one nice thing too is that, let's say you want to go back to the person you were just looking at. Well, you go to the top here, and there we go. George Washington, first president of the USA. We click that, and that's going to take us back to his view in the tree, as well as make him the focal point in the left side panel. So looking at another part of the HTML tree, we're actually going to go down and make the focal point George Washington's half-great nephew, and that is Lawrence Washington. So we're just going to click that, make him the focal point of the tree. But then once this loads, we're actually going to go down here to the bottom right, and we're going to look at what's known as the pedigree view of the family tree. Now, currently we are in the horizontal view of the family tree, which is a very typical view in a lot of the family tree building softwares. But when looking at the pedigree version of the family tree, it gives you a nicer view in terms of just the ancestors. So it cuts out all the siblings, the descendants, aunts, uncles, etc., and it just gives you the ancestors directly. So your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents. Then you'll notice over on on the right side all of these little green boxes with the numbers and an arrow, and that means that you have plus 20 generations more to look at if you click that, plus 10 more generations if you click that, and that's basically just going to set that person as the new focal point for the family tree. But looking here, it has a lot of options for us still. We can still click on that node, and that's going to give us the left side panel. We're also going to get the option to look at any matches within Genie or MyHeritage. You can also add any siblings or any other family members. And in this view, it has it a little differently. So you can add a father, a mother, brother, sister, husband, wife, son, daughter. And then you can also do edits to the other members of the family or change them to the focal point of the tree in the pedigree view. But we'll X out of that. And you can also just kind of do your basic edits. You click the little edit pencil in the bottom right of the node and it pops up with all of your edit fields. But a few things that you will notice in here are these little exclamation points and then the green ×2. Now you will find both of those in the other view of the HTML tree, the horizontal view. Now you won't get the exclamation points when you're looking at the Flash tree, and these exclamation points are the inconsistency markers. And an inconsistency marker is something where the Genie system is saying that something is not matching up. So here it's saying that they married too young. And it says that Jane Washington married when she was only 15 years old. Now, this doesn't always mean that this is going to be false. A lot of times in history, people were really young when they got married, and a lot of times people live to be really old. So you can sometimes ignore that, or if it's something that you're just not sure of, you can leave it, and you'll see those throughout. And that basically just means there's different inconsistencies. Sometimes it might be that a child's name is a different name, so meaning their surname. So if the parents are George Washington and Martha Washington, but the child is Charles Rebar, then it's going to say there's an inconsistency. But then when looking at the ×2, that's something that you will see in both of the Flash and the HTML version of the tree in horizontal view. And this just means that that person shows up twice. Well, the cool thing about when you're looking at the pedigree view is when you click that ×2, it actually highlights where that person is both places within the pedigree. So if they are there a couple of times, then it'll highlight all those different places. So it makes it kind of easy to see when there's pedigree collapse within a family tree. But one thing I should note when they do show this is that you'll notice that up here, Captain Augustine Washington Sr., they don't even put the parents. But down here, they do put them. And basically, that's just because they just want to limit the amount of people. So if they already have that person in the tree 2 times, then you just know by looking at the one that has the parents, well, those are the parents. Now, one of the really nice things about the HTML version of the tree versus the Flash version of the tree is the HTML version actually works on phones and tablets. A lot of different devices do not use Flash, and there are actually a lot of programs which are trying to get rid of using Flash, and there are even some web browsers that are discontinuing their support of Flash programs. So eventually it's going to get to a point where the Flash tree really won't even be supported on that many devices. And another thing to note is that a lot of the newest updates and tools that Genie will be putting into the World Family Tree are mostly going to be focused on updating in the HTML version of the tree. So if you're using the HTML version, you're going to be getting a lot of those newer updates, and when something new rolls out, that's where you're going to be finding it. So certain things like the inconsistency checker, which is one of the newest pieces of Genie, you're not going to find that in the Flash version because they just aren't going to be updating that. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to click the like button. You can also click subscribe if you'd like to subscribe to the channel. It's completely free to do so. And you can click that bell to get notifications. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at GeneaVlogger. I'm the GeneaVlogger, and I will see you in my next video.